Welcome to the high-octane world of F1. This week we dive headfirst into the turbulence at Alpha Tauri and the abrupt dismissal of Nyck de Vries. Was it justified? We also explore a shocking return and speculate on de Vries' mysterious meeting. Buckle up because this F1 ride is full of sharp turns. Red Bull is at it again with the mid-season sackings. Nyck de Vries is out of Alpha Tauri and Daniel Ricciardo is in. After waiting patiently by Toto Wolff's side for years for his chance, Nyck de Vries was summarily fired after just 10 races. Today, we want to know if Alpha Tauri was correct to fire him. Many people were surprised by Daniel Ricciardo's abrupt comeback to Formula 1. For the remainder of the season, he'll be a driver for Red Bull's sister team, Alpha Tauri. In a possible clue that Daniel will not be there in 2024, Red Bull's statement clearly indicates that he's being loaned to Alpha Tauri for the year. The Australian driver, 34, who was previously let go by McLaren last year, is scheduled to compete in the Hungarian Grand Prix on July the 23rd. Nyck de Vries, who was fired after just 10 races, is being replaced by him. After failing to earn a single point, experiencing many accidents, and failing to match the performance of his younger colleague Yuki Tsunoda, the 28-year-old Dutch rookie lost his motivation. Franz Tost, the team principal of Alpha Tauri, expressed his happiness to welcome Daniel back to the group, praising both his unquestionable driving prowess and the simplicity of his reintegration owing to his familiarity with the group. He also wished de Vries the best of luck in the future and praised him for his significant contribution while working with Scuderia Alpha Tauri. When de Vries joined Alpha Tauri full-time, the momentum from his outstanding one-off performance with Williams in the 2022 Italian GP quickly faded. The Dutchman started off extremely slowly, and after finishing without a point in the first 10 races and making a few rookie errors, Red Bull felt it was time for a change following Daniel Ricciardo's performance in the Silverstone tyre test. The Dutch driver has had it tough from the start, as Red Bull's decision to recruit Nyck de Vries felt more like a last-minute decision after releasing Yuri Vips and failing to persuade the FIA that Colton Herta deserved a super license. De Vries struggled to keep up with Yuki Tsunoda, the Japanese driver who isn't necessarily a super talent in his own right, and quickly earned Helmut Marko's wrath. Marko wasn't shy about revealing that Christian Horner hadn't been on board with the signing in the first place. De Vries was trying to impress the team while Daniel Ricciardo raced around like the ex-girlfriend who left for a few years trying to find herself. The fact that Sergio Perez handled the bag so poorly this year also expedited de Vries' demise. Even if it hasn't been a major problem this season, since Verstappen has been a dominant force in a harder-fought contest, Perez's troubles may have been disastrous for the squad. Therefore, putting Ricciardo in the driver's seat for the second half of the year is a great way to see if the Australian is capable of supporting Verstappen more effectively in 2019. After all, Red Bull has always made it clear that driver contracts are signed with the corporation rather than particularly with individual teams. Therefore, Perez may switch over to Alpha Tauri without violating his contract. Many people were surprised by de Vries' termination, not because they didn't see it coming, but rather because of the timing. Given that his home race in Netherlands occurs immediately following the summer break, the Dutch rookie must have been especially sad. Red Bull, though, has a good cause. De Vries is substantially older than most F1 rookies and is under immediate expectation to impress because he's a former Formula E champion with Mercedes. Helmut Marko, who explained to the Dutch daily De Telegraaf why the decision was taken to remove him, was disappointed that de Vries could not live up to expectations. He said that despite his teammate Yuki Tsunoda's outstanding performance in Monza the previous year, de Vries was unable to equal it this time around. Marko emphasized de Vries' advanced age and plenty of experience, claiming that his development fell short of expectations. De Vries has a distinguished racing history, having won the Formula 2 Championship and E-Championship. He's more seasoned than most other drivers hitting the grid for the first time, despite being new to a full-time Formula 1 position. Marko, who is renowned for his blunt honesty, claimed that de Vries lacked the speed to compete in the sport, putting the possibility of another F1 door opening for the expelled driver in question. Instead, Marko advised de Vries to enter the World Endurance Championship. De Vries can have a successful career in long-distance racing, Marko thinks, even if it's outside Formula 1. Without doubt, de Vries will find motivation somewhere else on the globe. With victories in the 6-hour Fuji race and 8-hour Bahrain race and 6-hour Monza race, he has a strong future in endurance racing. He'd be more than welcome to return to Formula E, IndyCar, or even rally driving if he wants a dramatic change. De Vries' F1 ambitions aren't completely dashed either. De Vries was seen having a conversation with Mercedes Motorsport CEO Toto Wolff in a Monaco cafe just 24 hours after being fired from Alpha Tauri. This doesn't necessarily imply that De Vries will drive a Mercedes in lieu of Lewis Hamilton, but it does suggest that he could be searching for methods to get back on the track. Unfortunately for De Vries, he was always going to find it challenging to overcome two very clear disadvantages. His rookie status and the fact that he was working with Red Bull were the first of these. Even by Red Bull standards, it would be considered a highly rash judgment to conclude after 10 Grand Prix that a rookie driver was not up to the task after failing to record a point in what was likely the slowest car on the field. De Vries, though, was not your typical F1 rookie. He arrived with plans in mind. He is 28 years old, has won the Formula E and Formula 2 championships, and already has one very strong Grand Prix outing in Monza in 2022, which placed him on Red Bull's radar. Additionally, the fact it was Red Bull worked against him greatly. This squad consisted of supervisors who had no apparent understanding what the word patience meant. Was it cruel then? However, given that Red Bull has exhibited the same ruthlessness with graduates of their own driver development over the years, Pierre Gasly being a good example, the writing was on the wall as soon as De Vries stumbled out the gate. There isn't much evidence to suggest Nyck de Vries was worthwhile to stay around if you take the emotion out of it. As one of only two drivers without a point, De Vries is 28, while the other is 22. Since he is not part of the Red Bull program, the only investment the team has made in him is the contract they gave him in the latter months of last year. He is a driver who seems to be a bit of a political hot potato, and a possible bone of contention between Christian Horner and Helmut Marko, the two top Red Bull leaders. Finally, there is a genuine chance that AlphaTauri might become separated from the herd if Williams continues to improve at Silverstone. A closer look reveals that there are 2 Grand Prix and a sprint race before then, despite the fact that the choice to conduct it now rather than over the summer break initially appears strange. By July the 31st, Red Bull may have fallen even further behind its rivals if they continued with De Vries. De Vries' firing has put him in an embarrassing situation, because past remarks in which he stated that Lando Norris and Alex Albon were not superior to him during their Formula 2 days have come to light. Social media users have taken notice of these comments as a result of the outstanding efforts of both drivers at the British Grand Prix. It is critical to keep in mind that he was talking about the 2018 F2 season, during which Nyck competed in the junior division for one additional season after Norris and Albon were both promoted to Formula 1. Although understandable and not really pertinent in the state of Formula 1 right now, he was frustrated he did not get the same opportunity as those two. Red Bull is a team notorious for making brutal choices, and although the ones with Gasly and Albon may have been erroneous, it seems doubtful that the same would be said about De Vries at this point. It's absolutely absurd that the contemporary F1 team can base such important judgments on just one race. It's really perplexing to select De Vries virtually at random before letting him go only a few months into the season. It's difficult to see how De Vries' situation could have been different in the end, but the issue still stands. Do you think Red Bull erred in making this choice? And do you anticipate De Vries returning to Formula 1 at any point?